My time has been limited lately, which is why I haven't released any new parts for the What the Bleep series. Before I get to the next part, however, there are some issues that need to be settled. I have received a variety of comments criticising my handling of this series, which I would like to address in video form. I'll start with this comment.
First of all, you were fishing for mistakes. Many find can be attributed to semantics, nothing more. And you were contradicting yourself just to prove someone wrong. You were also glorifying something called a fact as the only truth. And BTW quantum physics and even classical physics is not something that's ultimately factual. It all relates not only to what something is, but what it means. Bohr and Einstein would tell you a lot about this. I think WTBDWK is BS, but your analysis is cheap.
To begin with, semantics is a very important thing to consider when you are talking about science. In order to communicate effectively, you must be absolutely clear on what you are saying and leave no room for someone to misinterpret what you are saying whenever possible. With this in mind, I judge semantics to be incredibly important, and as such, I judge the misuse of semantics harshly. However, the cheap shot I've been accused of seems to be evident in its use against me here. The comment about quantum physics and classical physics not being factual is ridiculous at best and ludicrous at worst. Everything to do with physics has to be demonstrated with evidence. Unless you back up your proposition with evidence, you are engaging in nothing but speculation. Finally, when someone says I am glorifying a fact as the only truth, I have to ask the question, does fiction also qualify as truth now, according to this individual? Facts are facts. Fiction is fiction. As such, only facts can be considered truthful. I'm not about to start considering speculative pseudo-scientific nonsense as truth, just because an individual like this guy thinks it's clever to start using terms like glorify to bait me. I'm not a religious nut. Glorification is meaningless to me. He continues.
Yes, semantics are very important when talking about science, yet people in the movie are not talking only about science, and you take everything they say completely absolutely. You take a metaphor and turn it into a mathematical equation. Of course it's going to be nonsense.
The producers and the cast of this movie are trying to take philosophical concepts and then claim they are some sort of truth by applying quantum physics to it. This is not scientific in the least. I'll go into more detail in my analysis as I progress through it. For now, I'll leave the subject there, save trying to apply concepts in a narrow scientific field to everything outside of it is a misuse of the science and a gross overarching of the theories involved. Furthermore, their use of metaphors is a deliberate distraction from the fact that they are making scientific claims about things for which they have no evidence. He continues.
Truth has many forms. In all sciences, one thing can be truth until something else is discovered. As well, the discovered truth changes through time. Interpretations can vary. And as scientists discover something new, they sell that as the new truth. Maybe all observations confirm it, but sooner or later there is a new discovery that changes this truth. That is why they are usually called theories, but you could call all the New Age BS in the movie the same.
Okay. Truth is based on fact. If you start using the word truth as a euphemism for speculative nonsense or philosophical meanderings, then the word loses its essential meaning. Furthermore, the statement made by this individual needs addressing. In all sciences, something can be considered correct until a discovery is made that disproves a given theory. However, it is essential to note that in all cases, any theory that supersedes an old one must, under all circumstances, explain why it is the old theory worked so well in explaining whatever natural phenomena was being discussed. This is why, for example, creationism will never supersede evolutionary biology, no matter how many times evolution were to be disproved, because creationism has no explanatory power when it comes to the frequency of alleles changing over time. After all, how can one poofing everything into existence as it is, without any change, serve to explain the observable fact that species appear and go extinct all the time even today? The point is that whenever something new is discovered, it must fit in with all other observable phenomena, or be able to explain anything it supersedes. The best way to ensure this happens is to stick to the facts, and only make conclusions based on the observable evidence. As for the comment about selling, That's complete nonsense. Yes, there is an element of attracting funding for research, but one cannot get by on making claims that they cannot support with evidence on the basis that they are skilled orators. This isn't religion. I leave skilled oratory work to religious people and politicians and let the evidence speak for itself. Theories are named theories not because they can be overridden at any time or because they are speculative and not supported by the evidence. They are named theories because they are supported by the evidence and they do have explanatory power. If they are superseded, then their explanations, as is required by the correspondence principle, will be explained by the new theory that supersedes it. An example of this is Newton's theory of gravity and Einstein's theory of relativity. Relativity supersedes gravity because it explains large-scale gravitational forces within the context of galactic and universal interactions far better than Newton's theory and laws does. But at scales closer to that of earth-bound objects, Newton's explanations do a perfectly fine job of explaining gravitational interactions perfectly well. The correspondence principle applies. I got a response to that, essentially declaring that the only reason why Newton's laws apply at the planetary level within Earth's gravitational pull is because their explanations are good enough at that level. This was somehow meant to be a rebuttal to my point about the correspondence principle, and yet it demonstrates precisely what I was saying. Scientists don't throw out perfectly reasonable explanations, they simply incorporate them into new theories or modify existing ones as new data comes in. This is the strength of scientific inquiry. Quantum physics is still an emerging field, and as such, people do not have any business applying the principles where they have not already been demonstrated by the evidence. Electricity and electronics relies on certain aspects of quantum physics in order to explain why an electrical charge can travel from one point to another. A more thorough explanation will be provided as part of the explanation that will follow in future parts of the critical analysis, and so I won't delve too deeply here. Suffice to say that those elements we do have evidence for are perfectly valid for the systems in which they apply, but it is a misuse of scientific inquiry to apply them erroneously to other areas of the universe. One final point I need to make.
Oh, I also wanted to mention that you are discrediting people because they are commenting on quantum physics and are not renowned in that department. What makes no sense is, since you are not a renowned figure in their field, yet you are commenting on them.
This is disingenuous and misleading. The difference between my critical analysis and their meanderings is that when I make a statement about anything they've said, it is to point out where they have failed in their argumentation or to explain a logical fallacy they've made. Unlike those I am responding to, I do not make it up as I go along. My information comes from the documentation that is available to the public domain. I only reword or reinterpret whatever I come across if I can demonstrate sufficient understanding of the theory and all the elements of the conversation. I do not, nor have I ever claimed to be an authority on the subject, but I have also never tried to claim that the authorities on the subject are wrong unless it can be demonstrated that they have not based their conclusions on the evidence. As such, I feel my critique on their tactics is valid, whereas their comments when they try to portray themselves as authorities on a subject are nothing more than arguments from authority, where appropriate. If anyone qualified in quantum sciences wishes to correct me on any of the issues in the series, and they do so based on evidential support, I am open to being corrected. This is another important difference between me and the production team. So my pointing out that they are not qualified in various disciplines discussed in the film is not disingenuous, but someone else calling me a hypocrite for doing so is disingenuous and a somewhat devious attempt to invalidate my criticism of the movie. In the end, I am doing this to demonstrate that quantum mechanics does not allow people to change the universe around them based on wishful thinking, which is essentially the message given in the movie. If I am pedantic in my analysis, then there we are. I will continue to be such as I progress throughout the analysis. One more point. How far do I think one can go in quantum theory, parallel universes and gravity? Simple. As far as the evidence goes, and no further than that. Also, when a critic makes a statement like this,
But what about gravity that is oozing from another dimension? What evidence do the greatest scientists of the human history have to make such claims?
They demonstrate that they lack understanding of even the oldest scientific disciplines. The next part of the series will follow as time permits.